Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. I already know that today's topic will divide the opinion of many of you, but that's what makes us human, and wouldn't it be boring if we all thought the same? So let's start this off with a question. Is keeping a fish tank ethical? I personally don't believe there is a yes or no answer to this question, but have your say in the comment section below, and if you'd like me to, it can be something I'll cover in a later video, but I wanted your opinions first. This video, however, will be covering how to be a more ethical fish keeper. I'll be completely honest with you, even I don't do all of these suggestions, but I try my best to do as many as I can. The reason I wanted to create this video is because it's a common misconception that marine fish aren't hardy or robust. The reality is quite the opposite. These hardy fish have been honed by millennia of natural selection in an unforgiving, hostile environment, only to be netted by a diver, shipped halfway around the world in bags just big enough for them to turn around in, exposed to poor water quality and high levels of pathogens before finally being purchased by us. These aren't weak individuals, these are the survivors, so please look after them and give them the respect they deserve. You'll understand more of what I mean as the video goes on. While on the topic of fish, let's start with our choice in livestock. Although we as individuals may feel insignificant when it comes to the direction the hobby is heading in, this is incorrect, and is quite possibly the most important point I'd like to make regarding livestock. Every well-educated purchase we make is essentially us casting a vote with regards to what we believe is right and wrong. The reason almost every shop has a clownfish for sale is because we vote that that's what we want and find acceptable. However, if for example the sales in Moorish idols significantly increased, I'm sure it wouldn't be long before we started seeing them in shops more frequently. Something as simple as not buying a fish which are known to have a poor survival rate, or even buying fish from areas which are known to be well managed when it comes to their collection techniques, can make a big difference. The next part of this section is an interesting one, because although many people think that the topic of captive bred versus wild caught fish has a clear-cut winner, it's not as simple as most of us think. Of course, captive bred fish prevent wild fish from being taken from the ocean, and can in some cases be a sustainable solution, but not all fish are captive bred, and some which have been are grossly disfigured from our breeding practices. On the other hand, there are many negatives to buying wild caught fish, but if it's been caught in a sustainable way, it can also have some positives. That fish, for example, has provided an income for a local collector who may help to protect and care for the reefs, as they have a monetary incentive to do so. You can have exactly the same argument with regards to corals. However, I believe that where possible we should be buying corals that have been grown in captivity. This is purely from a hardiness and lack of pest point of view. The next topic is, are we doing everything we can to create the right environment for our fish? This includes everything from considering the appropriate tank to creating the correct social hierarchy to ensure a stress-free life. 95% of fish caught for the industry are juveniles. This is because they are smaller and have a significantly lower shipping cost. They are also more placid than their adult counterparts, therefore we need to be thinking about the future when we make our purchases. Firstly, is your current tank suitable for the adult size of the fish, and secondly, will its Jekyll and Hyde alter ego eventually take over and start terrorising its tank mates? I'm looking at you, clown triggerfish. Not to mention, in some people's tanks they keep both predator and prey species together. We should also be considering swimming pattern and style when it comes to aquascaping. Large energetic fish need lots of swimming room, and although it may sound silly, I regularly trim back my SPS colonies as they start to encroach on swimming space. When given the correct environment and enough space, fish were more likely to exhibit natural behaviours such as spawning, which is extremely rewarding to see. I've been lucky enough to have 8 species spawn in my tank, everything from a pair of flame angels to weirder matches such as the canary and silver belly wrasse, or even more surprisingly, my yellow and scopas tangs. Something which is often overlooked is a screen to prevent jumpers. This is usually down to cost, ignorance, or even a desire to not ruin the tank's aesthetics. But are any of these excuses ethical? Owning an aquarium without a screen is essentially like playing Russian roulette. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but at some point something is going to make one giant leap for fish kind, and you'll find it on the floor in the morning. This isn't just limited to wrasse either. I've had clowns and even a flame angel jump over my weir, and if they can jump over the weir, they can jump over one of the side walls. Assuming you've done everything to provide the right setup, it then comes down to water quality. A long time ago, a very wise man said that we don't keep fish, we keep water, and I couldn't agree more. We should be doing everything we can to create as stable environment as possible, and I personally believe that that goes hand in hand with both automation and testing. When we talk about stability, almost everything we talk about is surrounding water parameters. As many of you will already know, these fish are in an enclosed environment, and the toxic waste they produce can quickly rise to dangerous levels if not managed correctly. There are many ways to deal with water quality, and I don't believe that any single method is the best. However, what I do know is that no one should be adding a fish to a tank that has no filtration system, or a filtration system which isn't ready for fish. Cycling a tank with live fish is an extremely outdated method, and there are multiple options to cycling a tank without one. These days, there are even bottles of bacteria you can buy to speed up the process. If you're considering these bacteria products, please only buy them from a reputable company where the product has been proven to work. Something else for you to take into account when it comes to stability is your water change, lighting, and feeding schedule. Fish are more intelligent than we think, and they definitely notice routine. Pablo, my boxfish, for example, will be sitting in the corner of the tank waiting to be fed at the same time each day. Set yourself a routine and try to stick to it as much as possible. By setting a rigid schedule, you're less likely to become relaxed with your maintenance regime, and the fish are less likely to become stressed. Part of this regime should be weekly water tests. There's no special secret to success in this hobby. If you test your water at least once a week and know how to make adjustments when necessary, you're 95% on your way to getting an amazing tank. The next bit you'll have heard me speak about before, but I believe it's worth mentioning again, that nutrition is far more important than people realise. We should not only be selecting high quality foods, but also feeding the correct type and appropriate amount. Some people like to starve their tanks in order to keep waste export to a minimum, whereas I'm the opposite. I like to feed heavily, but I also accept the additional work required to keep up with nutrient export. When it comes to type of food, always make sure you know what the fish should be eating. Mandarins are a classic example of a finicky feeder, which loves hunting microfauna. Never purchase one on the assumption you'll be able to get it eating frozen food. Although I have had success training them in the past, I found that more often than not they are so slow, something else has eaten the food before they get the chance to eat it. Unfortunately, this is a perfect example of a fish which we don't keep ethically. I believe that more often than not, mandarins will be placed in a tank, begin to starve, and then the aquarius will slowly watch it get thinner and thinner before its eventual demise. The sad truth is it's easier to ignore the issue than try to catch the fish or source a regular supply of copepods. The final thing I wanted to mention is our attitude, and if we are even the right people to be keeping marine fish. Having spoken to many fish shops over the years, I've come to the conclusion that many of us feel that fish are disposable. So often, someone's fish will mysteriously die only to have the owners go into the fish shop the next day and buy a replacement, without even knowing what killed the first fish. I once witnessed a man bring a dead shark back to the shop requesting a replacement. The man claimed his water was fine, only to have his water tested to find it was totally unacceptable to house a shark. He then admitted he doesn't even have any test kits and it just looked fine. This obviously is an extreme example, but here we have someone that is more than happy to kill a second shark because they aren't willing to put in the time and effort to learn how to keep one alive or even test their own water. Now I accept there can be a very steep learning curve in this hobby, and that no amount of research can truly prepare us for everything we will eventually face, but there are some basics which everyone should know. Something as simple as understanding the nitrogen cycle is a good way to start, because the chances are someone who isn't willing to take the time to learn this probably won't be in the hobby that long anyway. Under the category of us also comes time and money. Can we afford to keep the tank long term, and do we have time to maintain it? The startup costs for the hobby don't have to be expensive. My first system was second hand and cost me £200 and provided me with everything I needed. However, something we can't escape from is the ongoing time and running costs. Much of our electrical equipment runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and there can be a substantial cost involved with this. This is similar to time. There are daily, weekly and monthly tasks which need to be carried out, and if we become relaxed and for example start to ignore the occasional water change, things can begin to go wrong very quickly. As I said at the beginning, I don't believe there is a right and wrong answer with regards to the ethics of fish keeping, but I do believe there are ways to be more ethical. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Have a good week and I'll see you next time. As always, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that supports me on Patreon. Never underestimate the value of what you do with regards to keeping this channel going. You've all been brilliant. Thank you.